Greetings again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OSI Today, the podcast featuring news and views from around the Office of Special Investigations. I'm Wayne Amon from OSI Public Affairs. August 1st, 2023 will mark the 75th anniversary of OSI's inception, and throughout the year, the command will commemorate the occasion using a communications plan based on the theme Inspired by Our Past, OSI's Future Starts Today. And with me to discuss what's in store during the year-long observance is one of the plan's organizers, Mr. Rob Vanderpool, OSI's Command Historian. Robert, welcome to the program. Always great to chat with you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Good afternoon.
Now, again, complete disclosure here. We're recording this. We didn't waste too much time getting into the new year. We're doing this on January the 3rd, so we can do kind of a preview of the entire year that's ahead of us in commemorating the 75th anniversary of the organization. But before we get into that, Rob, if you would, for our listeners not familiar with OSI, could you give us kind of a thumbnail sketch on how the organization got its beginnings nearly 75 years ago?
Sure. And you say, it's January 3rd. The year of OSI has already begun. So
yes, it has.
Are looking forward to celebrating with us. But
right.
OSI began really because of an anonymous letter. And, it always amazes me that an organization such as OSI, which today has such a worldwide impact, an organization that touches just about every part of our Air Force and our Space Force, across our Department of Defense, all of our international partners, an organization that does so much in the interest of national security, it all really goes back to a single anonymous letter that was written in 1945. So essentially,
go ahead.
An anonymous letter was written, submitted to the FBI, which reported some nefarious activities caused on behalf of a certain senior Army Air Corps officer. Right, there was no Air Force yet. We're still Army Air Corps, part of the Army. Related primarily to the purchase of purchase fraud and also stock fraud. This particular individual, he got very rich over several years, mostly during World War II, towards the end of World War II, while he was in a position of responsibility for procuring war supplies. He eventually retired from the service after the war, thinking he got away with it. Now, this letter was written in 1945, and he retired in 1946. And for a few years, the FBI had the letter, but nothing really came of it. It just largely went unnoticed until eventually it found its way into a congressional appropriations investigation. And they realized that they had this. They were looking at, to military appropriations, things like that.
Right.
And then that letter found its way. Congress says, hey, this is important. We should take a harder look at this. Found its way to the Department of Justice, who also got involved. When that happened, people began to question, not only the ethics of the particular senior officer I mentioned, but also, why hadn't this letter been investigated sooner? Both of these things kind of painted a negative light on military in general, and they wanted to get take a good hard look at this. So, long story short, this particular individual, he was eventually found to be derelict, a little bit unethical. He was stripped of his military retirement. They took away all of his awards and decorations. He was forced to repay a pretty hefty sum, and he also spent a few years in prison for his efforts there with his fraud. So why is that important to us? One of the key takeaways from the investigation that was done was really that the military in general was not able to conduct unbiased investigations on itself, because in a large part, a lot of the investigators reported directly to either the base commander or the unit commander for whom they work for. The accountability levels were very muddy. They potentially would get muddier depending on who the individual is involved. Sometimes even the investigators reporting the results of an investigation to those people who they had just investigated.
Right.
This wasn't good. Something had to change. So I'm going to step outside the box for just for a minute. And that there's that old phrase, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Sure.
Pretty common.
Yeah.
That's one I don't typically like to use. I have some disdain for it because it's just always carries such a negative connotation. It's like if we don't remember history, we're always going to be stuck in some endless, insidious loop of badness. And I don't think that's fair, because there are parts of history that are worth repeating. The good parts, right?
Right.
If something has worked well in the past, we shouldn't just automatically forget about it and grab it because it was in the past, right?
Sure.
So in September 1947, the Air Force activated as a separate service, breaking away from the Army. This was recognized really as a unique opportunity to get things right, or I'll say more right, if I might borrow from the U.S. Constitution's more perfect. We may never get to perfect or right, but I don't think the destination is as important as the effort that we take to get there.
Right.
As long as we take that effort in good faith, we should always be a step better than we were before. And I
Hmm.
think that's kind of how OSI all came together. It was that effort to do something that was a little more perfect, a little more right than what had been done in the past.
Right.
Now, to do this, like I said, they didn't just throw away everything. They took, well, first off, you have this new Air Force as a separate service, new service coming out of the Army. They realized, okay, we need to do something with this investigations process. Let's do something different. So what they did is they grabbed an FBI special agent. His name was Joseph Carroll. He was hand selected by the Secretary of the Air Force and the FBI director, and he was given responsibility. They gave him a military commission. They charged him with the responsibility to review the military investigative processes and make recommendations so that this new Air Force can create its own investigative agency.
Hmm.
Carroll did something, pretty bold, pretty unique. OSI was really modeled on the FBI because he came from the FBI. But
Uh-huh.
what he did is he took the best practices of the FBI, taking that stuff that works. He also took some of the best practices of the Army that, coming from the Army, a lot of our traditions, a lot of our procedures, all that stuff came from the Army. It
Sure.
wasn't all bad. So
Hmm.
they took what worked and they threw it in there. And then they incorporated with some new ideas and came up with this plan for OSI. And that's what's really set us on our path as an independent, investigative agency for the Air Force.
Hmm.
So on August 1st, 1948, OSI was officially established. It came into existence first as a directorate level function of the Air Force Inspector General. Responsible from the very beginning, the primary missions were criminal investigations, fraud investigations, and counterintelligence operations. Now, over the decades, the last 7.5 decades, that mission is and everything has evolved. Today, we're no longer a decade; we're our own field operator agency
Yeah.
with a very, very, very diverse mission set.
Oh, right. No doubt.
Um, and I just reach back one more time to that more perfect analogy. When Joseph Carrot was envisioning, what he was going to do with this new organization, and he was setting things up, I doubt he envisioned things like cyber or space or anything like that in
Hmm.
1947. So he couldn't really, he didn't really know what was going to happen 75 years later. But it was those first seeds, the way he put this organization together as an amalgamation of good ideas. That sowed the seeds of what we've become today, 75 years later.
Right.
That's kind of how I got here.
As the old commercial said, we've come a long way, baby. That's for sure. Now, getting into the year-long commemoration of the inception of the command, Rob. Let's lead off with the communication objectives for this commemoration. What is the object of having a year-long recognition of the command?
I think the main objective really is just to celebrate OSI and its history, celebrate OSI's achievements over the past 75 years.
Hmm.
It's that simple. Probably more importantly than just the organization, though, it's more important that we recognize and celebrate all the people who have served with OSI over the past 75 years. And
Hmm.
that includes those who continue to serve today. OSI's achievements belong to all of them, those that came before, and then those that are with us, that are with the command now. Um, when we got together, and first started talking about how are we going to celebrate this event, we looked at what we wanted to do to recognize OSI's 75th birthday, which falls this year, August 1st, 2023, right?
Right.
Well, as we started talking, we decided, well, why celebrate just one day when we can celebrate the whole year? We can celebrate for 365 days.
Hmm.
So it kind of quickly evolved from a birthday party into a year of OSI celebration type of thing, where we're going to mark, and observe and celebrate all 75 years of history throughout the entire calendar year.
Right.
We're going to note we're going to have a few key events on particular days throughout the year, but otherwise we're going to have stuff rolling out from time to time, on various platforms as the year goes on.
Right.
It's really a cool opportunity to take a long look at a really cool organization like OSI, and then hopefully people, as we're going through this, people will either learn new things they didn't know about OSI, maybe be reminded of things that they did know but forgot,
Hmm.
or just in general, just get a little bit excited about the great history of this organization.
Oh, sure. And as you mentioned, the folks today within the command are standing on the shoulders of those who came before them. So it's a never-ending, you might say, work in progress. Things had a great foundation, and now we're, as you mentioned, going into very different areas like cyber and things like that. So it should be a great future ahead of us as well. Now, Rob, moving to who we're targeting our messaging for. Who are some of the various target audiences that the observance is designed to reach this calendar year?
Really, we're trying to target everybody. I mean, everyone. OSI personnel, past, present, even potentially future. We've got future agents and analysts and other folks running around out there.
So is it fair to say this is can also be used as a recruiting tool as well?
Well, if we're doing it right, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we will, just by showing who we are. Um, People are really gonna kind of get to know us a little bit better and realize what we're about. We're out there to show our law enforcement partners, our
Hmm.
counterparts, our international partners, the American public. A lot of folks
Yeah.
don't know who OSI is or what OSI does. Even there, the rest of the Air Force and the Space Force now, there's folks within our own department that don't know who we are or what we do. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it really is a really good opportunity to reach out to these folks. In my job as a historian, I often find myself stopping and saying, wow, I didn't know we did that, or wow, I didn't know that we do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah,
hope that throughout.
I've been with the organization since 2015 in July, Rob, and I have to echo what you just said because you have everybody has kind of maybe preconceived notions of what they think OSI is like or what it's
Mhm.
about, but when they really get into the weeds, they discover, wow, that I just did not know that.
Yeah, and it's amazing, and like I said, this presents a really great opportunity. I hope that throughout the year, um, and folks will be able to get excited about those opportunities to learn something new, or just generally get excited about OSI and our history.
Hmm.
And again, for those who are outside of OSI, maybe it'll inspire them to, maybe look deeper into the history of their own organizations and see where they came from and maybe how they relate to us way back when, or however. It really is just an opportunity for us to increase awareness, increase understanding, it builds morale, foster some pride, and, have a little fun while we're doing it.
Oh,
Um,
sure. And
you
we're
had
having
mentioned,
fun right now. That's right.
you know, you had mentioned earlier about those that came before us, and that reminds me of former Air Force Chief of Staff General Mark Welch. He used to frequently comment on how we, as folks within the Air Force, were constantly standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
Right.
So basically, we owe those who came before us for putting us on the path that we're on, essentially. And this is very true, but we're taking the time to celebrate 75 years, and we're looking back, but we don't want to lose the folks that are with us today either. We want to make sure that they're involved in this process. So
Hmm.
each and every one of us who's serving today within OSI, or in whatever capacity, we all have the potential to be those future giants as we progress forward that others look back on.
Hmm.
And this is kind of where our theme for the 70th anniversary came from. The theme was inspired by our past. OSI's future starts today.
Right.
That really is a reflection of our desire to celebrate our past and pay our respects to those giants that came before us, but also to celebrate all the giants that we have in our ranks today. And that's really important.
Yeah.
Everybody who is currently serving with OSI is helping to build upon and reinforce or shape the foundation that was laid for us as we take that foundation and bring it into the future. So again, it's just really it's a really good opportunity to not only appreciate where we came from, um, appreciate who we are, and
Hmm.
then get excited about where we're going.
Oh, sure. Now, in moving on to this next question, Rob, uh, I think of, well, how are we gonna get there? How are we gonna what kind of communication strategy is going to be used in telling that OSI story? That strategy is pretty multifaceted in its own right. Looking at the communication plan.
Right, and there's going to be a lot of different stuffs going on. We live in the digital age, right?
Hmm.
So the bulk of our messaging will be done through the use of digital media, social media, and other various websites. In that regard, a big shout out to you and the rest of our public affairs folks for doing the heavy lift in this regard. I know you guys are working real hard to make sure that we get this out there and get people excited about this. So thank you.
Well, we appreciate those kind words, and PA has always worked hand in hand with HO, meaning the History Office. So it's a what do you call it? A labor of love, if you will, on both ends, I think.
Absolutely. I've always seen us as like, cousins within the Air Force. We both have different missions, but we share enough similar things that, yeah, we should, if we're not playing nice, we're doing something wrong.
Right. Now, the strategy, Rob, is going to be broken down into various months of the year. Just looking at a copy of that communication strategy, beginning this month with this particular podcast and a accompanying story that my PA teammate Tom Brading will be crafting shortly. We go to various regions, various lines of operation like criminal investigations, fraud, counterintelligence, cyber, the whole gamut. And so, as you said, and we do it also in going through the various decades, the 40s, 50s, 60s, and so on. And I think it's an interesting evolution as to how the organization within its ranks has evolved over the decades.
Right. I said it just owes to the diversity of the mission and just the general variety of history that we have. We have the whole year to celebrate. So when we were contemplating on how are we going to do this, we decided to break things down in a month, and then each month we'll take a series of topics, and each of these topics is independent of each other. So
yeah,
just because in the first month we're looking at Region 1 and the criminal investigations arena, that's not all we're going to talk about.
right.
And they don't have to be related together. Plus, we also don't want to focus on the history. We also want to focus on what's going on today. Again, our future starts today, right? So we'll be looking at the regions. We'll be taking a look at the different lines of effort, focusing on, again, one on each month, independently of each other, rotating those throughout the year. OSI has such a big footprint, and there's so much that we do. It's going to be hard to capture everything and look at everything, but we're going to cover as much as we can in as meaningful a way as we can,
Right.
with the the bandwidth that we have. I wouldn't expect too many deep dives into one particular topic or organization or activity. Again, there's just too much to cover, but hopefully we'll be able to put out enough of there to give a good representation of OSI is, what it does, where it came from. And then you mentioned the decades one. That one kind of falls in my wheelhouse. I'm the guy that looks at old stuff. So we're going to take like 1 month a year. We're going to focus on a decade, and that we're not really going to put anything new because this really is the past. But what I kind of wanted to do with that is just grab some things from the past and bring them back and bring them out directly to the folks. So photographs or old articles or things that were written in the words of, or images of the words of, or of the people that were serving way back when, and just give you that kind of direct connection to the history and say, hey, here it is. What do you think about it?
Right.
So and there's a few other things that we're having in the works along those lines. I know we're working on putting out a series of videos that will be released monthly, bi-monthly, with comments from our former OSI senior leaders and other things like that. For our listeners out there, I would just encourage you, man, when you're out there on those social media channels, look for that hashtag 75 years OSI, and it'll get you where you need to go to view some of these neat things.
There you go. And I'm glad you made that plug, Robert, because advertising never hurts, no doubt about that. Now, as far as messaging is concerned, dealing with that strategy, what are some of the key messages that we'll be delivering to our audience? I know, again, it runs the gamut, from basic history messages to the role that we have within the Department of the Air Force and everything in between. So the messaging is going to be, I think, as diverse as the skill sets that the special agents and the pro staffers work with every day.
No, agreed. We talked a little bit, the overarching thing is we want to increase awareness. We want to increase understanding, build morale, foster pride, and have a little fun. And there's a lot of ways we can go with this one. And for me, I'm a history guy, so I study history. There's really one thing that really sticks out for me more than anything else.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's focusing on, um, we need to continue focusing on, yes, the organization has grown over the years, the mission has evolved over the years, but one thing that was really remained constant has been the skill and the dedication of OSI's people.
Right.
History is about people.
Hmm.
It's not just dates and places and things like that. That's a part of it, but to me, it really is a small part of it, because without people, none of that other stuff matters.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the one thing that is really correlated across all 7.5 decades of OSI's history is our people. OSI has served everywhere our Air Force or our nation has needed us. They've the people of OSI have always risen to the occasion. I think
Yeah.
this remains even more important as we continue to look forward. Our future starts today, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the coming years, they present extraordinary opportunities, but they also present extraordinary challenges. You
Hmm.
know, the Air Force, the Space Force, our mission partners, our national partners are all going to continue to look at us and expect us to continue to evolve and meet those new mission requirements. As we look to those future challenges, and we remember that, hey, we do walk in the footsteps of those OSI members that came before us, those giants. Our future starts today as we blaze that path
Hmm.
that the ones that come after us will follow us. And that's the connection. It's not just 50 years ago, 75 years ago. It's a connection. There are folks in the command today who are with us who celebrated the 50th anniversary in 1998. They're still
Yeah.
serving with us.
Yeah.
We recently had a graduation last month from the Special Investigations Academy, and some of those agents will probably be around in 25 years for the 100th anniversary celebration. You
Yeah.
know, who knows? We may even have a future OSI commander in that group, but because they're serving in the same OSI today, they bind that whole expanse of that
Hmm.
history. And that's really what brings the history together is the people. The missions change, the locations change, the challenges change, but it's the people that keep OSI running and keep
Right.
OSI successful. The 75 years of history is really about all of you out there, in OSI and beyond, who have
Right.
made that history. I'm a historian. I don't make history. I write stuff down, I collect things, I safeguard them for posterity, but I don't make that history. All of you out there in OSI do. It's your history. So please celebrate it. Take this opportunity and celebrate it.
Yeah, and it's going to be a year-long event to commemorate the event, no doubt about that. My final question, basically, Rob, is generally speaking, what kind of tactics are going to be used to tell the OSI story? Now, I think you may have alluded to that earlier in our podcast about social media and so on and so forth, but we'll be also having, print media and things along that line, some various event. Spoiler alert here, I'm working closely with the local minor league baseball team in the Fredericksburg, Virginia area to hopefully, and early indications are we will be able to do it, although it's not etched in stone yet, but it looks very promising that we'll have hopefully our commander at the time of the anniversary of August 1st of 2023 throw out a ceremonial first pitch at the Fredericksburg Nationals minor league baseball game to commemorate 75 years of OSI. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That should be fun. Uh, we're kind of approaching this. It's kind of a run and gun style. And I say that because, as the OSI mission evolves, so does the 75th anniversary celebration. So
Hmm.
as things come up, we're gonna kind of throw them in there and add them into the calendar, into the program.
Right.
In addition to the social media and website stuff that we've talked about, we will indeed have some special events conducted throughout the year. Most of the focus on my end are going to be things that are going to be occurring in the National Capital Region,
Hmm.
areas near OSI headquarters. But we are also encouraging and supporting our various regions and detachments and other OSI organizations, in holding their own local events and ceremonies, and then sharing those with us so
Yeah.
we can use that to help tell that bigger picture. Because I mean, it really is amazing. OSI does have a worldwide footprint, so we want to make sure that we represent that well as we're doing all this as well.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about
So
that. Now, once again, Robert, the tag relevant social media content is hashtag 75 years OSI for people down the road to check out what's happening this whole commemorative year. And I'm looking
absolutely.
forward to everything unfolding. It's kind of like wrapping up a year-long Christmas present, if you will.
Right, absolutely. And they're like I said, this is a process and evolution, so we don't have a lot of stuff that's um, cemented down yet. But there are a couple things I did want to mention that we do have on the calendar that folks may be interested in.
Hmm.
First one is on March 19th. We're going to be planning a wreath laying event at Arlington National Cemetery, which will mark the 113th birthday of our first commander, Joseph F. Carroll.
Mm.
That will also include a presentation at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Hmm.
Um, Follow that up in May. We're going to be conducting all of our normal Police Week activities that we typically do every year. This includes activities downtown in Washington, D.C. at the National Law Enforcement Officer Memorial. But this year, they'll be a little bit different because we're also going to be adding an additional name to the memorial for one of OSI's fallen who was lost in the line of duty back in 1952.
Uh-huh.
Uh, More details are going to come out about that story in a little bit, but it's a really great opportunity for us to show that as we're looking back 75 years, we don't forget our own. And
Yeah.
this particular individual was killed in the line of duty, ended up being lost for about 70 years until he comes back into light, and we were able to properly honor him by getting his name added to the memorial this year. So,
Right.
like I said, stay tuned to your OSI public affairs channels. You folks will see a detailed story on that in the very short future on the details of that. But that should be a really, really, um, really touching thing to do, and
Sure.
it's just a really appropriate, especially seeing as it's our 75th anniversary year. Um,
Right. No doubt about that. Yeah, it's all great stuff to look forward to. And they say, I guess, anticipation is almost half the fun that we know that
right,
this stuff is coming up.
right. Well, you never a good tease is good for. You mentioned before advertisement. Well, a good tease is good for advertisement as well.
That's right. Now,
Um,
before we wrap up, Rob, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
well, there's actually two other events I'd like to mention if
Okay,
we've got
sure,
time.
sure. Go ahead.
The first off, the month of May. Again, we typically do our Police Week activities with that. We have the celebration event for our fallen heroes. And we do something every year, but every fifth year, the organization takes it up a little bit and does a more formal ceremony. And
Hmm.
we're looking to do some sort of a flagpole ceremony for our fallen heroes outside of OSI headquarters that day. That'll be a little more involved than what we normally do for that.
Yeah. And
Um,
for our new listeners, that of course is at the Russell Knox building in Quantico, Virginia.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Um, and then on top of that, you mentioned the baseball game. I got my fingers crossed, hoping that one that
Yep.
that should be a lot of fun.
Well, I'm a sports guy, so I'm pushing hard for that.
But the last event that I specifically wanted to mention was is going to occur in September, and this is going to be a big one. This is our Hall of Fame induction. We're going to be inducting a new class, the class of 22, into the Hall of Fame. But this one's going to be a little bit different than other ones previously as well, because of COVID-19, we haven't been able to formally induct any classes for a while.
Hmm.
So this event, we're actually going to be inducting the classes of 2018, 2020, and 2022 at the same time.
Oh, great.
With 7 new members, bringing our total up to 50. Now, the Hall of Fame was created during our 50th anniversary event. So this
Hmm.
kind of brings it full circle. We're going to do, 50 agents, 50th anniversary, 75th anniversary. That's all going to happen in September. That's going to be done in coordination with our Association of Former OSI Special Agents
Right.
convention.
Okay.
Typically, that's something that they have every 2 years, but because of COVID-19, they haven't been able to have it for several years either. So this is
Right.
going to be a very big event for them as well. We'll do our Hall of Fame inductions, and we're also looking at having our big anniversary type dinner at that event, so we can capture all the generations of OSI together at this one function to really celebrate those 75 years of history. So
And
that's
what
kind
what
of what's on the drawing board now. I mean, that's what's out there now. Those should be other things pop up as the year goes on, but those are the things that I'm really excited about.
Well, you certainly wetted my whistle, no doubt about that. We're working in PA like I do, and with our PA team, we're looking forward to working with you and the rest of leadership and getting the word out about all the great things coming up to commemorate the 75th year of existence for OSI. Our guest has been Mr. Rob Vanderpool, OSI Command Historian and one of the organizers of OSI's 75th anniversary year-long observance. Rob, thanks again for taking the time to be with us. Always great to chat with you, my friend.
Thank you. And if I just need one parting shot
Sure.
for the folks out there, history is tangible. It's meant to be touched. It's meant to be experienced. As we progress to the 70th anniversary year, I encourage every one of you out there to find those things that we are talking about or highlighting or just having fun with. Take those things that relate personally to you. Take the time to celebrate and enjoy them. You only get an opportunity to celebrate 75 once, so please have some fun with it. Thank you.
And thanks to you, Rob, for that great way to wrap things up. And thanks to all of you listening for tuning in. For OSI Today, I'm Wayne Amon saying so long for now.